Well, I think that my comments have always been that the population, this population, they have few advocates, given the nature of their life circumstances. And so I think that CCBD as an organization is sort of the one constant carrying organization for a fairly disenfranchised group of students. And you know, Tim and I and others, others who work with these students understand that this is not this is a difficult population, and it's a population that in many ways people don't want to advocate for. So I think CCBD allows us to keep this particular group of students, children who have or are at risk for emotional behavior disorders, in the public eye, and that we understand that when situations like school violence occurs, or when we see issues about restraint and seclusion, that we understand that our organization is going to step up to the plate and say, look, here's the voice for this population that we're going to, and we're going to be loud about it.
Yeah, I would absolutely sort of echo that advocacy piece. You know, one of the things that you asked us to do on this release form was to put how many years we've been members of this organization, and it's sort of a little disconcerting to think about 30 plus years. So in addition to kind of that advocacy role, in addition to sort of focusing on kids, specifically kids with emotional behavior disorders, I think over the past 3 decades I've also seen a great change and shift in the organization, and that it needs to. In that it also needs to be reflective of what's going on within the school environment. So things like response intervention and things like school-wide initiatives and multi-tiered systems of support are clearly the way to go to not only support kids with emotional behavior disorders, but also that early intervention prevention piece. And I see CCBD continuing to adapt, continue to advocate best practice, and not just sort of stop, if you will, in terms of, no, we only work with kids who are identified with this disability, that the organization really has become a much more comprehensive. Absolutely, at the heart and soul, we will always advocate for those kids, and we need to continue to advocate. We need to be their voice in terms of both research and service and advocacy. But at the same time, I also see this conference and looking at the sessions much wider, much vaster scope, which I think is good, and that for us to be a viable organization, we continually need to adapt and be reflective of not only the knowledge base and research, but the way the schools are going and the demands that they're seeing. Teachers of today, it's been kind of fun that I've reflected upon pretty much all the beginning teachers now that are out there. They've lived their entire lives in school with kids with disabilities. They have a much different perspective of kids on IEPs and their role in supporting those kids. You still get a little bit of us and them, but we hear a whole lot less of that. I spend, as a BD person, probably 95% of my time working with general ed teachers and administrators and giving them the skills and tools and support and figuring out how we build kind of those seamless supports and stop thinking special ed, gen ed, stop thinking IEP, non-IEP, but thinking about what do all kids need, including kids who are on IEPs for significant behavioral challenges.
I have found over the 30 plus years that our group, our organization thrives on facilitating knowledge, and we want to be helpful to teachers. We want to be helpful to new scholars. You know, Tim and I both, we have people come up to us and say, "Can you tell me about your work, either as a doc student or as a teacher?" And us, the pioneers, Mike Nelson, those people are all willing to do that. So maybe I'm biased, but I think our organization, CCBD, probably does that better than anybody else.
Without a doubt, they're much more approachable. Yeah. And, we're much more user-friendly, I would say.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to have the same sort of uptight.
No.
Yeah.
No.